Despair has a specific smell. It smells like reheated coffee at 3 in the morning, and the cold blue glow of a phone screen promising easy solutions to very hard problems. When I was laid off from my cybersecurity consultancy after a decade of work protecting banks, government institutions, financial systems that most people never think about, I wasn't just unemployed, I was invisible. 10 years of expertise, certifications, clearances, and the specific kind of institutional knowledge that takes a career to build, and none of it mattered at that exact moment. Because the retainer contract was terminated, and I was sitting at my kitchen table at 11:30 on a Tuesday morning wondering what came next. That's when the message arrived. WhatsApp. Unknown number. Profile photo of a smiling woman named Clara. And a message that read, word for word, earn $500 a day completing simple tasks for Amazon and Mercado Libre, work from home, flexible hours, immediate start. I read it twice. My brain, trained for a decade in cryptography, social engineering defense, and threat analysis, immediately flagged every single red marker in that message. Unknown sender, unsolicited contact, vague value proposition, urgency language, WhatsApp as the contact channel instead of any legitimate platform. This was a textbook task scam, one of the most common and destructive fraud operations running in Latin America and Southeast Asia in the past 3 years. I knew exactly what it was, and I did not delete the message. I did not report the number. I smiled. Because after 10 years of defending systems against people exactly like whoever was operating this scam, I was bored and unemployed. And Clara had just made the specific mistake of inviting a wolf into her digital henhouse. Stay with me. Because what I did next took 11 days, involved a custom-built Trojan, $500,000 in fraudulent funds, and ended with an arrest in Budapest. Before I tell you what I did, I need to explain how these scams actually work. Because understanding the mechanics is what makes everything that comes after make sense. And because there are people watching this right now who have received exactly this kind of message, or who know someone who has, the task scam, sometimes called brushing fraud or fake review fraud, is designed around one very simple psychological principle. Give someone a small win first, then use that win as leverage. Here's how it plays out. You join the WhatsApp group or chat. A friendly operator, in my case, Clara, welcomes you and explains the system. Your first task is simple. Click a link, like a product listing. Take a screenshot to prove you did it. You do it in 30 seconds. $5 appears in your app wallet. You think this is real. Because it is real. At first, that's the point. The first few tasks are genuine small payments. Not because they're generous, but because they're buying your trust. They're making you feel the dopamine hit of earning money easily, so that when the trap closes, your brain resists the obvious conclusion that something is wrong. Because your brain has already decided this is real, you've already told yourself the story. After several tasks, usually between 10 and 20, the operator presents you with an opportunity, a higher tier task. One that pays $500, $1,000, sometimes $5,000, but to access this tier, you need to make a security deposit, $200. To verify your account seriousness, to activate your VIP status, required by the platform to process larger transactions. And this is where the real money is made. Because most people at this point have already earned $20 or $30 in small tasks. They've invested time, they've told themselves this is legitimate. They do not want to believe that everything up to this moment was a setup. So they deposit the 200, and then they're told there was a technical issue. They need to deposit again, or their account needs a tax clearance deposit, or they've been upgraded to a tier that requires a larger security amount. The deposits escalate. 200 becomes 500. 500 becomes 2,000. 2,000 becomes everything the person can access in their accounts. And the Clara on the other end of the screen is not a woman named Clara. It's a rotating team of operators running dozens or hundreds of simultaneous conversations from a call center somewhere on the other side of the world, using scripts, fake testimonials, and manufactured urgency to extract as much money as possible before the victim finally understands what happened. These operations are not small. The one I encountered had processed over $400,000 in fraudulent deposits in a single week. $400,000. From people who were looking at $200 as a lifeline. I want you to hold that number in your mind as I tell you what happened next. I made the first deposit, $200. Money I knew I would not recover through conventional means. But I want to be clear about what I was doing when I made that deposit. I was not hoping to earn money. I was not testing whether the scam was real. I was buying time, access, and information. Because every financial transaction leaves a trail. Every digital interaction generates metadata. And every poorly secured system, which this one clearly was, contains vulnerabilities that a trained eye can identify and eventually exploit. While Clara sent me party emojis and screenshots of other users supposedly earning thousands of dollars, I was doing something completely different on my end of the screen. I was mapping. From the first deposit transaction alone, I extracted 3 pieces of information that would eventually break this operation open. First, an IP address trace on the payment gateway that pointed to a cloud server rented through a third-party provider, later confirmed to be illegally hosted infrastructure in Thailand. Second, a poorly configured API key visible in the network traffic of the task platform's mobile interface, a basic security error that any junior developer should have caught, and that told me exactly what software stack they were running. Third, the name attached to one of the bank accounts processing the deposits. Not a real bank, a digital payment processor, the kind that requires minimal verification and is frequently used in money laundering operations. I had been in the scam for less than 6 hours, and I already had more information about these people than they had about me. Clara, for her part, was thrilled. She sent me my task confirmation and told me I had been selected for the VIP tier. "Congratulations," she wrote. "Your dedication is impressive." "Thank you, Clara," I replied. "I'm really committed to this opportunity." I was not committed to the opportunity. I was committed to what I was building in a separate window on my second monitor. Within 10 minutes of the first deposit, I had traced the operation to a specific individual. I'll call him Marcus, which was his actual first name, one of several pieces of identifying information I pulled from the metadata of the platform in the first hour. Marcus was operating from an apartment somewhere in Eastern Europe. He was not, as the scam implied, an executive at a legitimate company. He was a fraud operator, one of several running similar operations simultaneously across multiple countries, targeting the same demographic with surgical precision. People who had recently lost their jobs, people experiencing financial stress, people who were looking at $200 not as a risk they could absorb, but as a decision that would affect whether they could pay rent or put food on the table. That targeting was not accidental. These operations have analytics. They buy data from brokers. They target specific social media demographics. They time their outreach to periods of economic instability. They knew exactly who they were messaging. They knew that Clara's targets were people with diminished critical thinking capacity because exhaustion and financial stress impaired judgment in measurable, documented ways. They exploited that impairment deliberately and systematically. When Marcus sent me the request for a second deposit this time, $2,000 for the executive tier, he sent it with the practiced confidence of someone who had done this 10,000 times and watched people comply 10,000 times. "The money is on its way," I wrote back. But what I sent him was not a payment confirmation. It was a PDF file labeled Deposit Confirmation Executive Tier. Professional looking, time-stamped, formatted correctly, and embedded inside that file, behind the metadata of the document itself, was a custom-built remote access Trojan, a piece of software I had spent 3 days building specifically for systems running the chat management stack I had identified from the API key. When Marcus opened that file, and he did open it because he was expecting a payment confirmation, the world he thought he controlled became mine. I need to pause here and say something clearly. What I accessed was a criminal operation. Everything I did was in service of documenting that criminal operation, recovering funds for victims, and providing evidence to law enforcement. I am not describing how to hack anyone. I am telling you what I saw when I got inside. And what I saw was one of the most organized and coldly efficient fraud operations I had ever encountered in 10 years of cybersecurity work. The dashboard I accessed showed thousands of simultaneous chat conversations, hundreds of operators working in shifts, each managing between 50 and 100 active victim conversations at any given time. The victims were categorized, color-coded. Each one had a profile, how much they had already deposited, their estimated remaining financial capacity, their emotional state based on message analysis, and a recommended next action from the system. The internal chat between operators was active around the clock. When a victim expressed doubt, there was a script for that. When a victim asked to withdraw their balance, there was a delay script for that. When a victim threatened to report the scam, there was a de-escalation script for that too. Every possible response had been anticipated. Every objection had been mapped. This wasn't a scam run by amateurs. This was a professionally operated industrial fraud system. And in the internal team chat, Marcus was celebrating. "The cattle are giving good milk today," he wrote. That line. I have done a lot of things in my professional life. I have been inside compromise systems. I have seen the damage that malicious actors cause. I have written reports describing harms in the careful, neutral language of professional analysis. But that line, "the cattle are giving good milk," was when I stopped thinking about this as a professional exercise. I looked at the real-time transaction log. I looked at the names attached to the deposits. People with Brazilian names, Indian names, Filipino names, each one a real person who had made a real financial decision because they were desperate and vulnerable, and because this operation had been specifically designed to exploit that desperation. I could have shut the servers down right then. It would have taken less than 10 minutes. But a shutdown is temporary. Servers can be replaced. Operations can be restarted somewhere else under a different name. I wanted something permanent, so I started reading their code. Their payment processing system had one core rule governing withdrawals. It was labeled, in their own code, block_withdrawal. A single function triggered whenever a user attempted to move funds out of their platform wallet back to their original account. The rule was simple: deny all withdrawal requests, redirect the user to a customer service chat, offer them a bonus task instead, keep the money in the system, always keep the money in the system. I spent 4 hours reading that code, understanding every dependency, every connected function, every place in the system where a change to that one rule would propagate. And then I rewrote it. Where it said block_withdrawal, I changed it to process_refund_to_origin. Origin meaning the account that had originally sent the money. Every deposit returned to the person who made it, automatically, without operator intervention, without any ability for the system administrators to manually override it, because I had also modified the administrative access controls to require authentication through my own device. I did not execute the script immediately. I spent the next 2 days doing 3 things in parallel. First, I mirrored their entire transaction database. Every deposit, every withdrawal request, every operator communication, every victim profile, to a secure server I controlled, then formatted it as a formal evidence package for law enforcement. I sent that package to 2 agencies, the Brazilian Federal Police, because the majority of victims were Brazilian, and Interpol, because the operation crossed multiple jurisdictions. I included with it a full technical analysis of the operation, the location data for the servers, the identifying information for Marcus and his team, and a timeline of documented fraudulent transactions. Second, I set a specific execution time for the refund script. Friday at midnight. I chose Friday specifically because fraud operators, like most people, tend to be less alert on Friday nights. Their monitoring would be thinner. Their response time would be slower. By the time anyone understood what was happening, it would already be done. Third, I wrote what I called a dead man's switch, a secondary script that would, if anyone attempted to shut down the servers before the refund script completed, automatically forward the entire evidence package to every major technology journalist I could find contact information for. I wanted them to understand that they had no good options. Let the script run. They lose everything. Shut it down early. The story goes public immediately. The decision was already made. They just didn't know it yet. Friday, midnight. I was at my kitchen table, the same kitchen table where I had received Clara's first message 11 days earlier. Same cup of coffee, same blue glow of a laptop screen, but a very different situation. I executed the script I had named Robin Hood with a single command. For the first 30 seconds, nothing looked different. The servers processed the instruction, routed it through the payment gateway, and began querying the transaction database to identify every deposit made by every account currently logged into the system. Then the transaction counter started moving. Refund processed, refund processed, refund processed. The numbers on the dashboard, which I was still watching through my remote access, began dropping. The digital wallet that had shown nearly $500,000 at 11:59 was at $300,000 by 12:03, at $180,000 by 12:07. The server load indicators were spiking, The payment processing system, which had been engineered entirely to receive money, was not built to handle the volume of simultaneous outgoing transactions. It was running at 140% capacity and climbing. The operator chat room, which had been quiet, woke up all at once. In the span of 90 seconds, I watched 14 separate operators log in from their home devices, all typing variations of the same thing. What is happening? The money is leaving. Shut it down. Shut it down. Now. Marcus himself appeared in the chat at 12:09. I will not repeat exactly what he wrote. But it was not professional. He attempted to access the administrative panel. The system prompted him for two-factor authentication. The authentication code went to my phone. He attempted to access it through a secondary account. Same result. He attempted to force shut down the servers through the hosting control panel. This triggered my dead man's switch. The evidence package began its distribution sequence. At 12:17, the wallet balance hit zero. $412,000 had been returned to the accounts that had originally sent it, processed as refunds through the same payment gateway the scam had used to receive them. The system was empty. The servers were still running because I needed them running for the evidence collection to complete. But there was nothing left in them worth anything to Marcus or to anyone else on his team. At 12:22, I closed my laptop, I made another cup of coffee, and I went to bed. The Amazon Tasks platform disappeared by Saturday morning. Clara's number went dead. Marcus was arrested in Budapest 3 weeks later in a coordinated operation involving the Brazilian Federal Police and Interpol, using the evidence package I had provided. I know this because a federal police investigator sent me an email confirming receipt of the package and informing me that it had been instrumental in the investigation. I didn't keep a single dollar of the money I recovered. I didn't need to. Occasionally, I see messages in consumer protection forums, people saying that, mysteriously, the money they lost to a task scam appeared back in their accounts. They call it a miracle. I call it something simpler. I call it the system working the way it should. Just with a little extra help from someone who had the time and the skill and enough anger at watching people be treated like livestock to do something about it. Here is what I want you to take away from this story. If any platform asks you to pay money in order to earn money, that is the scam. That is always the scam. Legitimate companies pay workers. They do not charge workers for the privilege of working. If you see this kind of message, earn $500 a day completing simple tasks, understand that the product is not the task. The product is you, your desperation, your hope, your willingness to believe that something easy could solve something hard. These operations are designed by intelligent people who have studied human psychology and who have built systems to exploit the specific ways that fear and hope affect your decision-making. The defense against them is simple. Know the pattern, name what you're seeing, and do not deposit anything. And if you want the full version of this story, every technical detail, every decision, every line of code, and every legal consequence, the complete account is available as an ebook in the description below. It's called The Task Trap, and it goes a lot deeper than this video could. Thank you for being here. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one, because the digital world is full of traps, and I know where most of them are. See you in the next one. 2.